Hello and welcome back to my 10 favorite people. Hope you're doing well. I'm incredibly excited for today's video because just 5 days ago, Bitcoin was trading under 90,000 and many believed the cycle was over. And in Monday's free weekly report, we were talking about remaining calm and fighting the fear. And just 5 days later, we have the US president-elect launching a meme coin on Solana. And now all of a sudden, Bitcoin is trading above 100K. And everyone is calling for a super cycle. I mean, just take a look at this headline. Crypto traders bag millions as Trump's Solana meme coin sparks frenzy. And this is exactly the type of volatility you'd expect as we enter the last phase of the cycle. You guys know that my base case is a late Q1, early Q2 top for Bitcoin, and that has been the case for over a year now, and I'm open to the other scenarios where Bitcoin ends up rallying until Q4 of this year, like a standard 4-year cycle, and I'm also open to an early top that catches everybody, including myself, off guard, especially with what we've seen so far from Bitcoin this cycle, with investors front-running the halving and us putting in a new all-time high before the Bitcoin halving for the first time, and then this very steep ascent we've seen once again with all of the bullish narratives and the media headlines that we're seeing right now. We're seeing new records for crypto trading volume on centralized exchanges, which is something we see in the final, most exciting phase of the cycle. We also have the US Bitcoin reserve odds on betting markets approaching 70%, which means investors are almost taking this as a given and are pricing it in quite aggressively. And that US strategic reserve narrative is warranted because we're seeing various states lead the way, like Texas, Wyoming, and Oklahoma, who have already introduced bills for a strategic reserve for their state. And we also have bullish price structure with a very clear false breakdown below 90K, which trapped a lot of shorts and a lot of panic sellers below that level. And we're 1 day away from closing a confirmed breakout above our range high at 100K. So there's a lot of reason to be excited right now, and I'm very optimistic for the next few months. But I will flip my bullish bias very quickly if we end up seeing a close back below our range high of 100K, because that would be a major warning sign that the inauguration on Monday will be a sell the news event. Because these rumors have been quite the catalyst for investors buying Bitcoin aggressively. For example, we know that Gary Gensler is going to be stepping down on the day of the inauguration, so we're seeing a lot of issuers filing for a ton of new crypto ETFs. We also see rumors being spread that the SEC under Trump could freeze crypto cases not involving fraud. We also have rumors that Trump plans an executive order making crypto a national priority. We're also seeing rumors that Trump is receptive to a strategic reserve with US-based cryptos like Solana and XRP. And this goes hand in hand with the price targets that we're starting to see all over the media right now, like traders saying that a measly 150K target for Bitcoin this cycle is silly low. And it's a lot more likely that we're going to reach 180K or 250K, 500K. I'm even seeing people seriously calling for 1 million per Bitcoin in 2025. We're seeing investors piling back into the ETFs once again. We're seeing greed starting to creep back into this market according to the Crypto Fear and Greed Index, when just last week we were seeing a bunch of fear. And all of the excitement surrounding these hot narratives and rumors makes my base case of a late Q1, early Q2 blow-off top very likely, in my opinion. It's hard to predict exactly what Bitcoin's next move is going to be, but grinding higher should be what's most likely. The only reason I'm not 100% convinced that the inauguration won't be a sell the news event is, of course, what we've been seeing with global liquidity. I know many are fed up with hearing about global liquidity and the fact that it's been going down, and this has usually spelled disaster for Bitcoin in the past. Many investors are still ignoring this because of all the excitement surrounding the inauguration and all of the potential executive orders that Trump could put into place as early as his first or second week in office. But if he fails to deliver, or if those executive orders end up not living up to the market's expectations, I think we will have to face this reality of global liquidity going down. that we've been ignoring for the past few months. We also have a CME gap around 78K, and this doesn't mean that we have to fill that gap tomorrow. Historically, over the past 4 years, those gaps have always been filled. Sometimes those gaps get filled quite quickly, like the one we had in January 2023 and filled 2 months later, or the one we had in December 2023 and filled 1 to 2 months later. We also had one in July 2024 as we approached that very exciting Trump speech at the Bitcoin conference, and that one was filled quite quickly as well. And recently we left one in November of 2024, but the gaps in 2021 took a very long time to fill. We had one in December 2020 as Bitcoin entered price discovery, kind of like what we saw in November, and we had another one in July of 2021 as Bitcoin approached its final peak, and those gaps were not filled until later in the bear market. So this isn't something that I'm selling all my holdings based off of and waiting to buy lower, but it is something I'm watching in terms of confluence with the falling global liquidity and perhaps a drop that could catch a lot of investors off guard if the inauguration ends up being a sell the news event. And this is why I have this area marked out as possible on how low will Bitcoin go on this correction. We already visited our likely region after sweeping that liquidity below 90K, but that was the easy part, which is why we marked it out as likely. But this possible region is more of a coin flip in my opinion, but it's still a scenario I'm prepped for because we still have a strong US dollar index that hasn't rolled over quite yet, and that is continuing to put downward pressure on global liquidity. The market is still pricing in only one rate cut for 2025 because the unemployment rate remains low and inflation still remains elevated, even though it's starting to head in the right direction. So this is something we're going to continue monitoring, and my invalidation for this rally would be a deviation back below 100K, and that would then open the floodgates for lower prices and Bitcoin testing that area in the mid to low 80,000s. As for my portfolio, haven't made any changes since my last update. I still feel like I'm prepared for all scenarios with my cash position as well as my safer holdings. If we end up teleporting higher because Trump implements a strategic reserve, my holdings should appreciate significantly. But if we see a sell the news event with the inauguration, then my cash position will be a nice safety net to take advantage of opportunities and reduce the overall volatility of my portfolio. But on Monday's upcoming free weekly report, I will definitely cover what I decide to do. Because I am still under the impression that Bitcoin above 100K for this cycle is still very expensive for buying or adding to my holdings, but I'm not too tempted to take any more profits quite yet. And speaking of profits, Solana has put in a huge rally ever since Trump announced that his meme coin was launched on Solana this morning. It went from underperforming Bitcoin by about 30% over the past 12 months to now outperforming Bitcoin by almost 30% within 24 hours. And this has resulted in an absolute mega candle for Solana, which put us back above its all-time high of November 2024 and even the all-time high we set in November of 2021. And this reminds me quite a bit of what happened going into the election. We had a bearish engulfing candle right before the week of the election, and then we had a fake out to start off the week, and then a huge bullish engulfing candle to the upside, which led us back to all-time highs. And this time around, we had a bearish engulfing candle again, wicked below it and terrified everybody, and then a huge bullish engulfing candle back to all-time highs once again. Now, these moves can last for a few weeks, so we'll see if there's continuation like what we saw after the election candle, but this is definitely impacting Ethereum negatively because Trump chose Solana over Ethereum, even though Ethereum is the larger, more established project, and he's launched NFTs on Ethereum in the past. So him using Solana this time around is quite the bullish catalyst for Solana in the short term. And I'm still optimistic with Ethereum. I'm still expecting it to perform quite well going into the end of the cycle. It's bullish that we're seeing these low price targets once again, and investors asking if Ethereum can even go back to 4K instead of the crazy price targets we saw when Ethereum was at 4K. and everybody was calling for 10 to 12,000. So I will continue to sit on my Ethereum holdings and expect higher prices, especially if we continue to see bullish price action for Bitcoin. As for traditional markets, the S&P 500 got very close to putting in a bullish engulfing candle, so we'll see how this upcoming week plays out, and could the inauguration be a sell the news event for the S&P 500 as well? There is only one way to find out, but one thing is for sure, whatever the S&P 500 ends up doing, Bitcoin is likely going to follow. But I am still bullish risk assets in the long term because the federal government is still running these huge deficits. As of right now, for the fiscal year of 2025, the federal government is already running a deficit of $710 billion, which is 39% above what they had at this time in the fiscal year of 2024, which is an insane year-over-year increase. And that makes me believe that these federal deficits are only going to worsen before they get better, which means more exponential growth in US national debt, and eventually that debt will have to get monetized, which means more money supply, and that is bullish for our risk assets like the S&P 500 and our fixed supply risk assets like Bitcoin. So for now, we'll see what happens. My base case remains unchanged. I know there's a ton of excitement right now, and maybe we end up seeing a rally into Q4. That isn't my base case as of right now. And with the plummeting global liquidity, I have to be open to the idea that perhaps this inauguration will be a sell the news event because investors are way too excited, and so many investors have already bought the rumor. So will they sell the news and take profit once that inauguration gets confirmed? But as always, thank you so much for the support on the recent videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.